Alright, so we all know it's one thing to be enamored with a new guitar and kind of be in the honeymoon phase, but it's another to know whether or not a guitar stands the test of time. And Rickenbacker is one that I am new to. I've had this guitar for a year now, well, just over a year. So I thought I would share with you my thoughts on whether or not I've actually used this, actually like it, and think it's worth having. So let's start off with some tone here, then we're going to dive in a little bit. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I hope you enjoy. So the short answer is yes. I absolutely love and adore this guitar, and I have used it quite a bit. With Ricks, and I am going to call it a Rick, I understand that the appropriate way to pronounce the title is Rickenbacker, which I'm okay with. I'm going to say it the proper way to say it. I understand that there are some players who go, well, don't call it a Rick. Well, no, I'm calling it a Rick. I have to draw the line somewhere. This is my Rick. A lot of players like to call Ricks one-trick ponies. The one-trick Rick. You heard it here first. They are not that, but they're not necessarily super versatile either. It's somewhere in the middle. And they have a sound. They have a unique sound, a unique playability, and a very different feel. I will say one of the things about this guitar in general is the feel is just super different. I mean, even when you look at the headstock, it's very, very flat. The way that the thing kind of course you follow my channel for technical terms, the way that the thing meets the other thing is sort of a different thing than you see on other things. The neck joint going to the body, it's flatter and it's deeper, and the whole guitar is just kind of shaped differently. It's got a thick neck with a narrow fingerboard. Now, obviously not all of them are going to be the same exact specs that way, but the style-wise, they're very similar. So that was the biggest change for me, because then when push comes to shove, it's still an electric guitar. And an electric guitar can be plugged into an amplifier, and the signal can be manipulated and can sound different in different amplifiers. And I've discovered that the term jangle really mostly refers to the bridge pickup, and especially refers to the Rickenbacker 12-string. That's where the term jangle comes from. It's also kind of contextual. It has to do with what sort of music you're playing in. You know, this guitar sounds awesome. It can sound like a rock guitar. It can sound like a blues guitar. I used this for a blues gig last fall, and it was fantastic. It performed well. It sounded great. I got compliments on it because most people don't see Rickenbackers in blues gigs, or in many gigs for that matter, with the exception of Tom Petty or Beatles cover bands. And it just worked. It was just great. And you know, again, it was different, and it was fun, and it was unique. Now, again, it has a sound. And so there was another gig I was playing where I wanted something a little more aggressive, and I used a Les Paul instead of this. But had I used this, would it have ruined the gig? No, absolutely not. It, you know, would have been a little bit lighter. I would have had to turn the gain up a little bit higher, but it just is a really cool, really unique guitar that's kind of off the beaten path. Now, as some of you know, this one is a modified one. I did not keep it stock, and I'll talk about that a little bit before we dive back in with some tone. The way that it was stock was fine. It was still a great guitar, and I would have loved it and played it just as much when it was stock. In fact, the recording that I used it on, which you can listen to right here for some clean parts, that was actually when it was stock before I did the modifications, and it sounded great. What my response to the stock was that with the high gain pickups, these are toaster pickups from Gemini, and they're great. And I wound up doing kind of a whole vintage makeover with the tailpiece instead of the R tailpiece, the pickups, and then I even went with the vintage style tuners and things. But what I found was that with the high gain pickups, the high gain pickups were kind of like Rick flavored P90s. And I think the goal is to make them more versatile. So the thing is I didn't necessarily need a versatile guitar. I'm pretty lucky to have a nice guitar collection. So I didn't need the versatility. I wanted the uniqueness. I craved the uniqueness of it. And I thought those were fine pickups and everything, but I thought, well, I really want to get some classic toasters in there. And so, I did a whole video on the conversion and whatnot. And still with the toaster pickups, I found it still just works as a great electric guitar. It's not like all of a sudden all I can play are Tom Petty and the Byrds, It still just sounds great. It has kind of a woody tone, kind of this flat, slightly less refined, but in a charming way, I want to say. It's a pleasant tone, and it's a reminiscent tone, and it's an older tone. But again, it still works, and it still sounds great. And what's really neat is you can go just very quickly from a crazy, awesome rock guitar tone right into the classic Rick tone with just a couple of foot switches and pedals and different things. So let's take a listen to some tone here. We're going to play it in a sort of a rock style, and then going to click back and play it in a classic Rick style. Now, I mentioned that I used it for blues. When I used it for the blues gig, it was after the conversion. So I was using toaster pickups in a blues gig and a blues trio, too. In a blues trio, you need to think a little bit more about filling up sonic space. So frequently in a trio setting, I will use kind of a fatter humbucking guitar type sound. But I really wanted to use this, and I did, and it worked. So let's listen to what you can get out of this thing for some really cool blues tones. Now, I should mention I'm going into my Princeton reverb featuring the Jupiter Alnico speaker, and I am using my custom pedal board that I built specifically for the Princeton. Today you are listening to a combination of pedals which you've seen on screen, and I will link to those below. Let us know, what do you think about the Rick? Now, this is obviously a solid body guitar. Many of them are the semi-hollow body guitars, and then many of them are the 12 strings. Now, a semi-hollow, because of its size, might be a little bit different, and of course a 12 string is going to be a lot of bit different. So this one is the less committal as far as getting into the Rick world. I'll certainly admit that. It's not that different though from a semi-hollow. If you're talking about the 6-string, it is of course a lot different than if you're talking about the 12-string. And there are some great effects you can use to simulate a 12-string sound, which I even did in my conversion video using a Line 6 Helix. So you can delve into that world a little bit if you want, kind of without, you know, necessarily spending a couple $1,000s on an electric 12-string that you're not sure that you'll use. Will you use it is obviously a question that I can't answer. All I can do is share my experience with it. And my experience with it is a high quality, good sounding electric guitar that does feel and play different, and it's, you know, got a sound, but the sound is not just for one thing. It's a pleasant guitar. I'm really thrilled to own it. This was an anniversary gift from my wife last year, and it really kind of got a special place in my heart. I think, you know, not only because of that, but just because I had never... A lot of the guitars that I've played are in kind of a realm that I'm very comfortable with. This is one that was out of my comfort zone, but in a way that I fell for, that I really, really enjoyed. And again, feel free to have a listen to the recording, watch some of the other videos that I've done with this, and I think you'll see and hear, and hopefully from this video, that there are just so many cool tones you can get out of this thing that are different enough to be unique, but not so different that you can't use them. So let us know what you think. I'm Jack Fossett. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.